Welcome everyone to our second installment of finding slope review from Algebra 1A and 1B. In this video, we're going to be looking at finding slope from the three forms of a linear equation. So our first form of a linear equation is our y equals mx plus b. When we're in this form, our slope is nice and easy to find for us. It's right here, this value right in front of the x. So just like before, the variable m is still standing for slope. So whenever we are in slope-intercept form, you want to go ahead and look for your coefficient of x, or in this formula right now, it's just an m in our generic form. Next form we're going to be looking at is where can we find slope in point slope form. So that's our y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. So you might notice again in our equation, m is right there, ready for us to find. And this time it's outside of the parentheses that are containing that variable x. So in this case, that is going to go ahead and be our slope as well. All right. Both of these forms of an equation of the line had the word slope right in their name. And that's what's going to tell you that somewhere in this equation, your value of slope is just going to be one of the numbers right in your equation, and you're not going to have to do much work to find it. So you just want to refer back to this generic form. Where does that m live? And you can pull that right out as your value of slope. Our last form of an equation of a line, standard form. So this does not have that word slope in the name, so we have to do a little bit more work to find our slope of this line. So standard form is ax plus by equals c. So not only do we not have slope in the name of this form, we don't see any m's in our equation. In order to find slope from standard form, we want to take the opposite of our a value and divide it by whatever our b value is. Okay. So we're going to do one of two things down here. So first, we're going to find the slope of each equation, and we're going to add to that, we're going to identify the form used. All right, and I'm going to shorthand these forms to save us a little bit of writing. So slope-intercept form is going to become SI, point-slope form is going to become PS, and standard form, we'll just have that listed as SF for now. Okay, and you're welcome to use these shorthands as well. So I'm going to go through a couple of these. My first example, we have y equals 2x plus 7. So I notice that the y is isolated on the left-hand side of this equation. There's no parentheses. So if I was to classify this as one of the forms, this would be our slope-intercept. In slope-intercept, I know that my slope is located as the coefficient of x, which in this case would be 2. So it's this guy right here, right in front of our variable x. Next up, number 6, this looks very similar. Y equals -5 times x minus 4. So again, y is isolated on the left-hand side, no parentheses, which is what we would be looking for in point slope. So this would be, again, slope-intercept form. And my slope here is always that coefficient of x, that number right in front of x, which in this case is -5. All right, number 7. We have -1/2 times the quantity x minus 2 equals y minus 3. First thing that I notice about this equation is my parentheses here, which immediately makes me look at point slope form. which is the only one of these forms with parentheses in it. So this would be our point slope form. In point slope form, our slope is the number, or we could call it even the coefficient of the quantity in the parentheses. So it's right out front there of the parentheses containing x, and that's our -1/2. So it's okay for slope to be an integer, like 2 or -5 in the first examples, and it's also okay for slope to be a fraction, like -1/2, which we're seeing in number 7. All right. Number 8, we have 4 times x minus 3 times y equals 12. So if I'm looking at number 8, I can see that x and y are on the same side of the equation. This only happens in one of our forms, which is our standard form. So when we're calculating our slope from our standard form, we want to take the opposite of our a value divided by our b value. So our a value is right here, oops, in front of the x, right here, and our b value is whatever our coefficient or the number right in front of the y is. So in front of the x I have a 4, so I'm going to take the opposite of that, which would be a -4. Out in front of the y I have a -3, so I'm going to go ahead and take that just as it is. So our formula does not say to take the opposite of b. We're just going to take it exactly as it looks, which is a -3. And I'm going to simplify that a little bit because a negative over a negative is a positive. We would have a positive 4/3 as our final slope. Okay. I'm going to go through the next 4 examples. If you feel like you've got this, feel free to sign off at this point and go and do your practice. If you want to see a couple more, stick with me. We're going to go through them together. All right, next one, number 9. So we're looking here at x and y are on the same side, which should indicate that this is a standard form equation. So for my slope, I want to look for my opposite a over b, which in this case is going to be a -2/4. Always, always, always look to see if you can simplify that fraction, which we can, and it will be a -1/2. Number 10, again, x and y, same side, another standard form equation. All right. Looking for our slope, we're going to take that opposite a over b. So our a value is 6. Opposite of that's going to be a -6. B value, -2. Always reducing. -6 divided by -2 is 3. Okay. 11. Y equals -x plus 1. Something to remember, when a coefficient is not written or is simply a negative sign, there really is a number there, we just don't write it, it's a 1. So in this case, we are in slope-intercept form, and our slope is that coefficient of x, which is a -1. Next equation, I see in number 12, we have these parentheses. That's sort of a telltale sign that we are in point slope form. And my slope here is going to be that coefficient of the quantity with that variable x in there, which in this case is -1.